Hello everyone. In this video we're going to create a URL search parameters utility. What this enables us to do is to be able to read the parameters that are being passed through a URL. So if I go to a browser, for example, and I type in question mark and a name of a parameter, so for instance, in our case, what we're creating is forms. So form name equals, and I can give it a name. So my list here is called lures. So I would type in lures, ampersand, and the next parameter we would want to use is form view, and that would be equal to new, edit, or view. And finally, we would have, if we are on edit, we would have an ampersand and select ID, and it could be the ID of the specific item that we're looking for. And this is what we're looking to do, is create something that will retrieve this information for us. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do is we're going to start by creating a new file inside the utilities folder. And this file is going to be called get_URL_params.ts. We're going to start by creating the function that's going to retrieve this. It's going to be an empty function for now, just so that we can keep TypeScript happy. I'm a little bit of an OCD. I don't like to see a lot of red on the screen, so let's go ahead and get that taken care of. Our function is going to be called get_URL_params. And it's going to equal to just an empty function for now. And we're going to export that empty function. All right, so you can see that's helping us out there. We're going to create an enum, and this enum is going to be called form name. And this is just going to help us switch between the different form names, give it more of a static options. Give us static options so that we can use that. So the first option that I want to use is a form called lures. The reason for that is because I do want to work on getting this list to work with it. So that's why we're doing that. So it's going to give you an option for lures, and obviously every time you create a new form, then you want to update this enum to encompass that form. Now there could be a potential that somebody types in the URL manually and they do this incorrectly. So we're going to invalidate if somebody puts anything other than what we select in this enum, and I'm going to set that to invalid. I'm going to create another enum, and the next enum is going to be called form view. The form view can be separated into new. It could be an edit form. So we'll set up edit, and it could be a view form, and we could put view. Obviously the user could misspell it. So if it's not any of those three, we're looking at an invalid parameter inside the URL. Okay. The next thing we're going to do on here on this file is we're going to create a function called the map form name. And that function is going to receive a parameter called form name. And it's going to be of type string. And notice that I put up a question mark there. And what that entails is that it is going to be an optional parameter. It could potentially be undefined, because obviously if the parameter, they put form name with a capital F or something, those are strict. The parameter query has to be strict, but not necessarily the value, because the value, I'm going to show you how we can circumvent that. But for the actual property, it is definitely going to be case sensitive. So for the map form name, we're going to create a switch statement. And actually, we can go ahead and set this up to be type safe. This is going to return form names. And the key that what we're going to be looking for in the switch statement is going to be looking at the form name dot to lowercase. And Basically, this is just going to make sure that if they do put the form name in, uppercase, lowercase, it's gonna always be lowercase, so that we can always check for the lowercase value. So the lowercase value in our case is lures, as you can see up here. And if it is lures, we're going to return form name, which is right here. You can actually double click on this option, dot lures. Notice that the break is kind of like it says literally, you hover where it says unreachable code detected, and that's because the break return is another form of break. Like as soon as it hits this section and it returns, the function stops. So we don't need that that break. The next thing that we're going to do is, because right now we only have one form, obviously you're going to be adding every single time that you have a form, you're going to be adding a new option here. For our default, however, we also don't need a break. We're just basically going to return form name dot invalid. And that's going to take care of our map form name. The next thing we're going to do is create another function here that's going to be very similar. You're going to map form view. And for this one, it's going to be the same thing. We're going to import form view, and that's going to be a type string. And to keep it type safe, we're going to return form view from that one. And we're going to have a switch statement. In our switch statement, we're going to look at form view to lowercase. And our value that we're going to look at is, let's go ahead and start with new. Get rid of this breakpoint, and we're going to return form view dot, oops, make sure it's capitalized because that's your type, dot new. The next case is going to be edit, and we're going to return form view dot edit. And for our third case, we're going to have view. I'm pretty sure you can tell where I'm heading with this. I'm going to return form view dot view. And finally, if it doesn't satisfy any of those, then we're going to invalidate. You can never tell if a user is going to mess something up, so it's better to just make sure that we invalidate everything that they do incorrectly. Finally, we can move over to our function that's actually going to do all the work for us. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to search params. It's going to equal to a new object of type, that's basically going to do a URL search params. And what it's going to look at, because as you can tell here, it's looking for a string to look at, and the string is going to be window dot location dot search. Actually, it's a method. We're looking at a method that goes through and gets us the URL parameters. First parameter that I want is going to be called form name, and that's going to equal to search params dot get. And use a get method, and what we're looking for is form name. Next one is going to be form view, and it's going to be search params dot get form view. Next one is going to be item ID in a string format, and that's going to look for params ID. All right. So now we have our three parameters that are going to come from the URL. Now ID, we typically would want that to be a number. So we're going to create another constant called item ID. That's going to be of type number. Sorry, misspelled there. Number. That's going to be we're going to take that string. So we're going to use a parse int method, and we're going to pass to it the item ID string. And if it doesn't have anything there, then we're just going to use the string of 0. The reason for this is because that's going to enable us to do some error handling. For instance, if somebody puts in edit but no item ID, the item ID by default is going to be 0. And if it is 0, then we can throw an error saying there's an issue here. Because typically IDs, it cannot be anything like a negative or anything like that. It has to be positive number. And finally, we're actually going to make this type safe. We're going to create the type for this function to return for us. And the type is going to be type URL params. And that URL params is going to return a form name string. That's going to be a type form name. And it's going to be form view string. And it's going to be a type form view. And finally, we're going to have item ID. And that's going to be, item ID. And that's going to be of type number or 0. Okay, we can save that. So there's our type. And we're going to make this function here. This function is going to return to us our type, URL params. That's going to make it type safe. So now that we have our type safety entered, let's go ahead and return that to it. So return, and in this object, we're going to return form name string. And I like that. You see that IntelliSense? That's awesome. Map form name, and that's going to require form name, which is this string up here. And that's going to return to us form name or invalid, because that's what we set it up to do. Map form name. I think I typed it in here twice. Sorry about that. So form name string is going to use the map form name function until you're going to pass form name or invalid. The next object we're going to return form view string, and that's going to be map form view. Form view is going to be passed to that or invalid. And finally, we're going to have item ID. And for item ID, we're simply going to return the item ID. All right. So that's going to do it for this video. We've created a file that's going to get our URL parameters, and it's going to enable us to switch. And this can be used for many things. If you need any other kind of parameters from a URL, this would be a good methodology to use. It enables you to iterate through different parameters, and always want to make sure that you invalidate things if a user makes a mistake. That'll do it for this video. I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, give it a like. If you think someone else could benefit, please share it. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment and subscribe if you can. It's free for you and it really helps me out. Finally, if you can, go ahead and click on that bell to let you know when the next video is added.